What's up, and welcome back. It's the Cork Stats Counterpoint, fastest freaking show in NFL, absolutely anywhere, with your boy, Big Johnny Stud. Follow me up on Twitter at John the Gazer Flow, sharpening the damn razor. Got something new for y'all. Kind of resurrecting an resurrecting an old idea that I used to run for baseball, and it was pretty popular. I wondered if maybe I could run it back for football, since I'm not popular enough in football to actually get these people's attention. I'm going to spend the next half hour or so, whatever it is, arguing with all of our favorite analysts. There's so many takes out there, good, bad, and in between, and a lot of the same people doing so much content that they leave behind so many great nuggets that I think a lot of them don't get addressed. So, as your local, big mouth and arguer, I'm going to address some of these things. Not always disagreeing, sometimes agreeing, sometimes expanding, and everything in between. So if you're unfamiliar with my work, welcome aboard. My name is John the Gazer. Follow me on Twitter, like I said. I write the waiver wire column for The Athletic. I'm also a contributor at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, as well as Rotoballer. In season, I'll be doing the game-by-game write-up for Berry. Really excited and proud to be getting that one. And for whatever the fuck it's worth, which is basically nothing, I've been nominated as the FSWA NFL Writer of the Year. So I like to think at least one person thinks I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Who knows, though, this day and age. All right, let's just get into the thing we do, me and you, the Cork Stats crew. If you'd like to see more of the tools, stats, and data and stuff that I'll be showing off throughout the show, follow me up on Twitter. There's a link in the description. I'm also doing baseball hot and heavy, shit never ends. Right up, you see the color-coded and uploadable underdog ranks. But we're not going to be doing that today. Again, let's go. Who's up first? All right, it's my boy, Patty Crane. Actually, I think he wish he was my boy, I guess. He's my internet friend. You spend so much time listening to some of these guys, you feel like you know. Pat, definitely great dude, super sharp. Maybe my favorite analyst in the space. Like, pound for pound, maybe my favorite guy. Very open-minded, very well-researched, and, very successful. I think all those things matter. Pat did catch my ire, though, right? The eye of Sauron, when he mentioned Isaiah Likely might be the worst pick on the board. And I was like, oh, what? So let's take a little bit of a dive. Right now, I just have the macro team level stats up. Like I said, I'm going to be flipping around, showing off all the tools. Again, this is just the preseason stuff. All of the same sheets you see are going to update in real time during the season. Again, I don't know how this is not worth $2 a week if you're even half serious about this. Though I'm more focused on betting in season than, let's call it, redraft fantasy. That's another story for another day. I will certainly have my chips down in the fantasy streets. Right now, I'm still volume playing best ball, which is where I have a ton of Likely. And I think he kind of plays either way. You see, I have it highlighted up on the board. Let's go through last year. Now, of course, Likely did change spots. I think that's a boost, going from being, really like a backup tight end to being the starting tight end. And I think I'll get a little bit of competition from Theo Johnson. I really wouldn't let that throw me off with all the prevalence and, inception of all the multiple tight end sets and stuff we're going to see. We know Likely he doesn't have to play in line. He can, but doesn't have to. We've seen him really function out of the slot. Let's go to the videotape. So, again, the usage was not great. So the output wasn't great. Though I would say being up near 1 3/4 fantasy points per target is not bad. He only ran 238 routes. That's Isaiah Likely. Though I'm not trying to pigeonhole Pat into saying he was making his determination off what we saw. And I get it. It really wasn't great. Just 15.1% target per route, 1.3 yards per route. He did have 8.5 yards per reception, which we like. I mean, too many routes per first down. 21 routes per first down is just egregious. And I get it. The Lamar was a little bit off target for him, which maybe you wouldn't expect with the, A dot just at 8. So I think that could correct. The man and zone stuff, which I've been using a lot of in my own work, you see I have that kind of segmented on the board right there, where Likely really wasn't great versus man. You'd think he would be. So maybe this is part of the ding on Likely. and maybe it's just a small sample from last year, but it really wasn't great. Negative EPA, versus man, single-digit success rate, just not great. Yards per route, like 1 1/3. Really not much better versus zone either, though a little bit better as far as EPA and success rate. And I think also that's kind of a little boost for him. I think when zone is identified, you'll be seeing likely as the safety blanket there, providing he could find the spot. That is yet to be seen. We have seen him produce in the past, so I don't want to throw that baby out with the bathwater. Again, Giants moving away from Wandale. I think there are close-up targets to be had. I'm not going to pin Wandale's 140 targets on likely. That's not what we're doing here. We're trying to be reasonable. I've heard some people push back that the Neighbors thing hurts likely. I would argue the Neighbors thing helps likely. I wasn't pushing him to be this A1 team carrier. That's kind of patently absurd, if you ask me. I think he much better functions as a second piece, which, quick aside, when we're looking for tight ends, in particular in the triple-digit ADP, we're looking for a guy that could break tackles and run, check, and that could be the second target earner on the team. And I think that's also a check for likely. So just stylistically, I think he fits into a draft plan, far from the worst pick on the board. Now, maybe it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek from Pat. Again, I have literally the utmost respect for him. And I probably should have prefaced all of this with that. I used to do it all the time to death on the baseball show, to the point people were telling me to stop, in that if I'm addressing your work, it is the ultimate flattery. I'm a fucking jerk off. I think I'm smarter than 98% of the people in every room I walk into. If I'm talking about your stuff, it's because you're part of the 2% that I think is smarter than I am. It means I'm taking my very valuable time to not only digest your work, but then to think about it and then to either counter or expand on it. So, like I said, I really should have put that first. Crane, BBM winner, order of magnitude better than I am at this. And I'm just kind of doing the best I can with what little tools the big guy upstairs gave me. Now let's get into the good part, likely, right? I let off with the bad. I always try and disprove my own points. Well, I think all that stuff I mentioned is baked into the price with the potential for a step forward. We're also hearing drum beats out of camp that the dart to likely battery is working out very well. I'm not into snap counts right now. I don't really care. Likely in the slot is the thing that I'm most focused on. Back to Wandale and those vacated targets. He's gone. Likely ran more than half of his routes out of the slot. Nearly 13 routes a game. Didn't really earn the targets we wanted. But still, I think pretty effective. And that opening, right, you could see I slotted likely with the Giants this year. Again, it's never perfect, right? If you're providing last year's stats, if I put Baltimore, people are looking with New York, there's no best way to do this. This will all be a lot cleaner once the season starts. But anyway, you can see Wandale was at 23 slot routes a game, 6 slot targets, almost 4 catches for over 40 yards and 4 scores. Who else is taking that role? I'm not really sure. So when we look at just the amount of volume that Wandale was getting, all again, like I mentioned, close to the line, with the low A-dot, that same kind of 8 and change A-dot that likely kind of occupies. I almost want to see Theo Johnson out there at the same time as likely. Let him eat up the blocks. We're looking for catch and release. We're looking for motion into the slot to maybe get a mismatch, shoulder wiggle, break for some yak. So I'm not really buying this worst pick on the board thing. Now, I'm looking at Fantasy Pros for ADP right now, kind of real-time consensus. Again, it's flawed. Everything is flawed. Everything is flawed. Part of the edge in fantasy football right now is moving within the market machinations, right? That's what it's all about. So I try and use consensus stuff. Best ball is a little bit different. Who the fuck knows? You know what I mean? Some of this you got to think on your feet. I'm seeing Kincaid moving up into low hundreds, 106. Then Likely 112, Goddard 117, Andrews 120. They're both behind Kelsey and Kittle, the olds. Kittle saying he should be ready week 1. I don't know what you're going to get as far as efficacy going. I don't know if I'm looking to open that mystery box if he's more expensive than Kincaid and Likely. I keep mentioning those two because they've really been my tight end plan. In drafts where I'm not taking Colston Loveland or even Bowers up front. Now, quickly, I want to bring up the dart stuff you could see on the board for the video people. And where I meant to leave this was Jackson Dart in that top row. Look at the slot target rate, 36% slot target rate. There is an intention, there is a vacancy, and there is an opportunity here to fucking go nuts for Isaiah Likely. So I'm not buying the last slot on the board. Anyway. I still like Kincaid over Likely. I think if he's set to eat up more routes, this is like in Kincaid. A guy that was like, he's a first round draft capital guy that was going in like the top 5 rounds in the past. Held up with the PCL, right? Was he Patella also? Either way, it was knee. And, sometimes you got to give an N+1 to recover. He played limited opportunities, maxed on those. Now, I don't think you need to project that same efficiency on the full workload to have him be a smash. I've been pairing the two of them. I also like Jackson Dart. So maybe that's another reason why I've had Likely as part of my drafting plan and why those, my antenna freaking went up when Pat kind of hammered me. Yeah, I was doing that. So just briefly, right, before we get into the next one, I think Dart trajectory up, likes to throw close, breaking down plays. I think Likely skill set leans into that. And in the games, I don't have them offhand, but in the games where Likely was a tight end 1, he also produced really well, which is part of why when we're looking at backups, year-to-date stuff, per-game stuff can get, a little kind of fucked up. Again, at the price, I'm not pushing Likely on people. I'd rather have Kincaid. I still like Tucker Kraft. When he's at pick 80, he's been moving up into the 60s with the good reports. Again, I just having trouble getting away from Likely as part of a best ball plan as a TE2, waiting into the hundreds to double tap Kincaid and Likely, and then feeling like I get 2 guys on a per weekly basis that could spike, that also come with a little floor. So, Pat, I love you. I got to disagree with you there. And everyone make sure you're following Patty's work. He's at Legendary Upside. I mean, again, if you don't know Pat and do know me, there's at least one thing you're doing wrong. But they're really doing some great stuff with the sidekick, all these, drafting tools and stuff. Again, super sharp guy, really nice guy. And I'd love to know his, kickback. But again, a lot of these big creators don't have DMs on. They don't want to fucking beg for interaction, whatever. It is what the fuck it is, So, but this is just us in our little corner of the internet, doing our best to push back on the people, just briefly, I wanted to speak to that. And it's funny how people in Pat's ilk, right, very successful, super smart players that now have motion, right, they become market makers. So any of these guys, Patty among many others, when they take a claim, it reflects in their work, on their shows, and you see it manifest in movements in ADP. So I think it's especially important for the small fish like us to recognize, right, where that movement is happening and either try and, swim in the wake or go against the tide there. So here, I'm going to be going against the tide. Again, I'd still much rather have Loveland anywhere in the back end of the 4th. But if I don't, for me, it's Kraft in the 80s. And then if not, I'm backing up to the hundreds where I'm looking for Kincaid. But then if not, Likely. So if I miss on it, I feel like in the hundreds, it's not that detrimental. But hopefully I did a decent enough case to pitch why Isaiah Likely is, at least not the worst pick on the board. Next one. My guy, Johnny Daigle. He's with ETR. Make sure you're following him. He's at, I think it's not Jay Daigle. Again, John, like one of the true goats in the industry. I also had the pleasure of meeting him in person at a flex draft hosted by Jake Seeley, and his reputation precedes him. Johnny is not only fucking encyclopedic with that shit. Like you listen to his work and you think like, how many notes does this guy have? The answer's none. The answer's none. He just is so ingrained in the work that he can quote specific stats off the top of his head. He is fucking brilliant and a nice guy, and he gets extra bonus points for having tolerance for whiskey. Me and him were hammering him down. We were doing work. We were doing work at the bar after that draft, just talking ball. He is the man. So let's get into Johnny Daigle. You can see up on the board. He's got the Tetairoa McMillan fade on. This one, we're agreeing with. Johnny, I am with you 1,000%. Okay, a few things here. Let's dive into the Panthers' former first rounder. Though, let me preface again. Let's start with his stuff. I like to start with the counters to my own argument. I think that's a good place to start so I don't get carried away or feel like I'm being ridiculous. If you do jump onto the Substack and are interested in the data, I know I get some boomers in here always asking how to use this. You don't have to be a genius. I'm not. Remember, though, it's a really great trick for anybody out there using Google Sheets, Excel, and stuff. If you sort, right, A to Z, obviously it totals. If you then sort by another one, it will keep that last one in mind. So if you were looking at the board, I just sorted by total points, then sort team by alphabetical order, and it will sort every team in order of year-to-date fantasy points scored. Of course, I've got points per game, points per route, points per target. Same for running backs. We'll get into some more quarterback stuff. And then the team level data stuff I think is amazing. We're going to look at that in a second because I think that's going to play a part systemically in why John and I are off Tetairoa. Now, why is it dangerous? He scored over 200 points last year, 12.5 points per game, so he was healthy. The efficiency stuff, not great. 0.39 per route, 1.73 per target is But again, tons of volume, 546 routes, 94% route participation. He's out there. Over 32 routes a game, that's full-time. Earned 122 targets. Just got over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, 70 catches. So you can see, even at 22% target per route, 1.86 yards per route, there's a little bit of meh here, right? Where's the meh? One, not really a yak guy, whether that's a personal skill thing or a inability for Young to set him up, I don't think it changes. You can see he was one of the league leaders in fucking unrealized air yards. So that kind of kills the catch rate. He also had a couple drops. Let's call that unsticky, and he bounces back. Okay, opportunities through the roof. All the team target share, all the team air yard share, just everything. Okay, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Pretty good split man versus zone. Again, this is where we're getting into why it's scary to be feeding a guy like Tetairoa. Earning massive amount of targets versus man, more than 2 yards per route versus man. Earning targets versus zone, almost 2 yards per route versus zone. Success rates in the double digits, both sides. You're getting explosive catches and stuff. Now, here's another one of the big hangups. Last year, they were not moving him into the slot. Just 15% of McMillan's routes came from the slot. I thought that was, I'm trying to say, that I thought the prospect of that changing was hurt with the injury to Brazen. That maybe he would eat up some of those go routes and stuff because McMillan just didn't work out of the slot. This preseason, however, he has. So I am getting worried. I'm not backing off it yet. Preseason usage is not really everything. But I also worry again about the systemic stuff. So he didn't produce from the slot. He could. He could. And then he's a target in the paint. 15 red zone targets and 11 end zone targets for McMillan. So again, he's going to profile well. The answer here, for me at least, is found in the opportunity cost. So just to go real time, consensus ADP, So it's not like I don't like McMillan. It's not like I think he sucks at all. My issue with McMillan is he's going right next to Zay Flowers, who I'd rather have. He's going right next to Ladd McConkey, who I'd rather have. He's going next to Jalen Waddle. He's going in front of Waddle and Garrett Wilson that I'd rather have. Now, when we get to Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Devontae Adams, maybe I'd rather have McMillan, but at that point I'm shopping in other waters because that's right where I'm snatching up Colston Loveland. I'd rather have Colston Loveland than Tet McMillan like a fucking million times out of 100. Every single time, twice on Sunday. Let's look at the systemic stuff for Carolina. Again, I am really proud of the way these team level sheets came out. Carolina was ass. Poor point differential, under 60 yards, under 60 plays a game, under 300 yards per game, just 5 yards per play, negative net yard differential, too many turnovers. They also moved very slowly. Will that change? I don't know. Turn off the lights and I'll glow. They want to run the rock. Look at the pass stuff for Carolina last year. It was terrible. Just 34 dropbacks a game, just 19 and a half completions, under 200 passing yards, down to 164 when you start removing sacks, 6.4 YPA, just 10 yards per completion, 6.7 air yards per attempt. I mean, this is terrible no matter where you're slicing this. No explosive plays to be had at all, just 91 explosive plays on the season for the Panthers. The sacks are bad. Again, not all sacks are created equal as bad as they are. But to have nearly 7.5 yards lost per sack for Young is gross. He's up. I mean, the time to sack was terrible. So that's another new one that I added and I think is important. When you're taking sacks and the average time is low, just at 3.25 seconds, we have a line problem. I don't know if that's really fixed now. And it's not like Young has grown. So you can see why I have my doubts. Again, there are systemic issues here. There's also no one really else on the team to take any kind of attention. Like, you're facing Carolina. There's how many names are on the whiteboard going into it? For me, there's legit one, and it's not the quarterback. I know everyone's probably rolling their eyes that I didn't mention Jonathan Brooks. Listen, I was drafting Brooks in the hundreds. I chased him up to pick 100. Now he's in like the 6th round. You could have that. What does an honest volume projection look like to get him there? I don't know. The problem with the Panthers, again, is the skill group. Bryce Young, Hubbard, Brooks, McMillan, Coker, Leggett. What, if you're not getting Leggett, is it Jimmy Horn? I mean, this is bad. Tight ends, Tommy Tremble. They signed Darren Waller. There's just nowhere else to defend other than Tet McMillan. Give me a crystal ball. Bet your freaking bottom dollar, I'm going to tell you, that no player saw more attention, more press, more bracket than Tet McMillan. So, and is Bryce Young the kind of guy that's going to be able to overcome that? I don't think so. Let's look at the McMillan stuff. I was looking at the passing stats as a team, but he played everything. It was gross. It was gross. He doesn't even target his wide receivers enough. Bryce Young, just 55% wide receiver target rate. I mean, I mentioned the air yards. It's all gross. He throws too many picks. The guy can't see over the fucking line. Okay? It is what it is. So for that reason, and many more, I'm with my guy, Johnny Daigle, and I'm fading Tetairoa at cost, right? At cost. This is always, every decision we make is price determined. Okay? If he were going a round or even 2 later, then sign me up all day. But right now, I can't take him over Waddle. How could you take him over Waddle? To me, that's nuts. I'd rather get Loveland, circle back. There's other wide receivers I'd also prefer to even have later. Maybe even apples to apples, Watson, Evans, and Washington. 3 guys I'm targeting in the 60s. That, again, it's not maybe necessarily I'd rather have them all over McMillan 1v1, but I'd rather have them all in the 2v2 that we're talking about. Because, again, you're where McMillan is going. If you didn't prioritize running backs early, the last of the good are going right there. So shout out Johnny Daigle. Make sure you're following his stuff. I DM'd him, but I don't want to chase these fucking guys down. I feel bad. Trying to get a fantasy analyst to give you his time during August is like trying to get a fucking CPA at the tax deadline. It's crazy, man. All right, so that means it's time for the next puzzle. Next up is Davis Maddock. Talking tight ends here. He's got T. Ferguson to the moon. He has like multiple mortgage payments on T. Ferg. I wish him the best. And I agree. Okay, I should start with that. Where I disagreed was he was kind of tying it with this. He was talking late tight end plan. Okay, I think there's a lot to cover here. One, shout out Davis Maddock. Shame what happened with the Flock League. Hopefully he gets his due. He is busting ass. Guy works fucking hard as hell. And I'm also really appreciating the baby face turn. Davis has got a face turn with the Flock thing going on, and you should be following his work and supporting his stuff. I think he's very smart. I think he's really going to help you learn to think about this stuff. Again, he rolls with a fantasy football intellectual dark web. Shout out all those guys. They all do fucking great work. They're all 5 orders of magnitude more popular and more influential than me. And again, we're just trying to do the best we can with what little we got. Okay, so let's talk T-Ferg, who I was opposed to at first. I've now come around on, even at some of the elevated prices. But where I've disagreed with some of the other stuff he was talking, late tight ends. Let's get into that. Okay, you know what? For this, I'm going to bring up my underdog ranks. I'm going to filter for tight ends, and we'll kind of attack it there. So, okay, T-Ferg is going at 169. I've got him at 161, so I'm ahead. I leapfrogged Schultz for him after the Higgins injury. But either way, that's fine. Now, at the same time, let's go bring up the Rams stuff. So, number one, you want to be attached to the Rams. They're prolific. They're also creative. They're also running all these multiple tight ends sets. So, there is just a systemic argument that Ferguson is freaking awesome. I know there's a little bit of confusion, right? Because Higbee is out there and Parkinson is out there. And I get it. We don't actually know how that's going to shake out. Let's take a look at those 3. I'm going to highlight them here and go for it. So when I first looked at this, the disagreement I had was I was actually glad that Davis had me look at the tight end room in general. But then I came away with thinking Parkinson was a smash pick at cost. So super efficient, more than half a fantasy point per route, about 2 1/3 fantasy points per target. And I think even some of that is lost in it took Parkinson a little bit to get going last year. I'm looking at the game log here. He played week 1 and was out. He missed week 2. Week 3, I think he was banged up and was part-time. Same for 4, same for 5, misses 6, out there 7 by week 8. So the first half of the year was an abject disaster for Parkinson. He comes out and closes out really freaking strong. And this is with everybody playing. I mean, 441-1, 214-1, 441-1 again, 332-1, 575-2, 6 for 53. It starts to strengthen as we go. 436-2, 234-1, 3 for 56. What are we hearing? We're hearing some long catches, yard after the catch. We're hearing lots of attention in the red zone for a team that's going to score a ton of touchdowns. I know Devontae Adams is queued up for a bunch of that, but so is Parkinson. He caught 43 of 56 looks for 408 and 8, 23% target per route, 1.7 yards per route. I mean, this is all really good. More than 6 yards after the catch per reception, just 10 routes per first down. And again, because of the low ADOT, a guy like Stafford, it's almost a 0% off target rate. So they're going to convert all these fucking things. He's fantastic against man. I think that's worth noting. It appears to me, at least, when there's man coverage on the field, it's Devontae Adams deep, Parkins inside. 22% target rate of the team target share versus man. 2.5 yards per route. A full point of EPA per target versus man. 15.5% success rate. Just insane. Just insane. He is a part of the offense, which again is a top tier offense versus man Very few people better at the pre-snap recognition than Matthew Stafford. For me, I'm like wheels up on Parkinson. I was about to write Davis a fucking thank you note for putting me on to Parkinson, even if it was like incidentally, because I think the late 10 end stuff was rough. Now back to the intellectual dark web. A lot of these guys are talking 4 tight end teams. I can't get there. I'm at 3 max. Some teams where I have Loveland, I go 2 max. And a guy like Parkinson, I think, opens you up, right, for those teams where I mentioned if I've waited, those are the teams I definitely have 3. So that team where I have the theoretical team, where I have Kincaid and Likely to swing back for Parkins. I mean, the fact that Parkins is going after pick 200 as a focal point in the red zone for the Rams is crazy. Also, check this out. Rams very prolific in the play action game. Parkinson is like the A1. 31% target per route in the play action. When they run play action, when he's on the field, he is the target. And then I mentioned all the stuff up close. 7 end zone targets, 20 red zone targets. I mean, Parkinson should be going way earlier in drafts. I'm going to bring up the tight end consensus ADP now and tell you where, like, I don't get any of this. Parkinson is the tight end 30. He's going behind Eli Stowers, who it might be a 0 the entire year. Totally fucking crazy to me. Okay, crazy to me. He's going behind Ferguson. Let's talk about that in a second. He goes behind Schultz, again with the Higgins stuff maybe. Behind Dulcich. He goes behind Njoku. He goes behind Barner. He goes behind Hawkinson and Sadiq and Gadsden. Yo, that's nuts to me. Kobe Parkinson is going to play. He's part of the offense. And then you have to worry about Higbee injury. If like Higbee goes down or something, fucking forget about it. This guy has tight end 1 written all over him. And I think at the price, he's totally worth the gamble. Let's back it up and talk about Ferguson now. Because when I looked at this at first, I was a little bit worried. You know, it's really kind of a part-time thing. Ferguson, and I mean, I'm sure the people that have kind of pushed back on Davis have mentioned this. Ferguson had 1 game all year with 3 catches. A couple other with 2, a bunch of others with 1. That said, I don't know if there's a better, like, after the catch guy going anywhere near him, right? Going anywhere near him. I'm sorry, I'm saying after the catch. I should be talking deep shot because we're looking for explosives here. So the premise for the play on Ferguson has to be creativity through usage, which again, you can get me to buy that. When we're talking McVay, when we're talking all of the tight end sets, let's shoot over to the Rams now. Meta for the team. I have alignment stuff all the way to the right. Now, I did mention the play action stuff with Parkinson. Rams, top of the board in play action stuff. I mean, I'm very high on Parkinson. I've gotten very high on Parkinson. I'm drafting him on like legit, like every freaking team I could find. Sorry, I overswung it. Here's the alignment stuff. Rams had at least 2 tight ends on the field for 41% of their snaps. And tight ends in general got 25% of the targets. So I think this is one of the few teams where it's okay to roster more than 1 tight end. And I think if Davis is correct, and I'm drafting Ferguson also, let me be clear, it's a price thing. And it's funny, this goes to what I was speaking about influence, right? Davis has a singular influence on fantasy markets. Bottom line. I don't care if it's good or bad, if he's right or wrong. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. Now, if you're fading Ferguson, I guess maybe it opens up some back-end stuff. I do think he's done me the solid of keeping the Parkinson price really cheap because I think people are focusing on Ferguson as the Rams tight end breakout. And sure, if you were to tell me one of them like completely broke out, I think that answer would be Ferguson. I think there's a low chance of it happening, but I do think it could happen. Whereas Parkinson, I think if we just keep simulating the season over and over and over and over again, he's like front end tight end 2, front end tight end 2, back end tight end 1, back end tight end 1. And a lot of that, again, is going to be predicated on these end touchdown dependent spike games, which is huge, especially in half point PPR, something like underdog. So back to Davis and pushing Ferguson, I feel like you almost know when you're in a room that Davis has had influence on because Ferguson is going at like pick 150. That to me, that's entirely too soon for the gamble and the opportunity cost. And that is what it is. I could turn out to be wrong on that. I have found, even as like ADPs have kind of consolidated, Ferguson maybe because, right, he really is kind of a polarizing guy with a wide range of outcomes. There are times he's making it to pick 165, 170. I'm smashing it then, right? So I didn't want to make it sound like Davis is wrong or anything like that, or I totally disagree with it. I'm chasing it up to a certain point because I do see the vision. Let's get back into Ferguson and where this goes right. Okay. So where this goes right is 21 yards per reception, 18 and a half air yards per target, which is just fucking completely nuts. And again, the reason it's an outlier is because McVay is an outlier, right? That deployment, his kind of creativity, I think he saw it first. That with the prevalence of the too high shell, winning underneath becomes more important. And it's never going to be less difficult to string together a 17 play drive to get there. So how do you do that? Right? How do you defeat the too high without capitulating to low A dot, low A dot, low A dot? Is having these pieces that are so versatile, right? And that's the new thing, right? And I think it's been telegraphed. It's all the new thing. It's the new thing, right? It's Bowers. It's even McBride, right? It's McBride. And it's Loveland. And it's tight ends that can hold their own at the line, catch and release, create matchup problems, and win downfield, right? So like you have these like crazy weapons. And I think Ferguson has the potential for that. We haven't seen it fully realized to the point that I pay ADP 150. But I do see the vision. Okay, nobody in the tight end like sphere is anywhere near that. Again, total man beater, total man killer, explosive reception goat. Also got some, play action stuff. Got some looks in the end zone. But like, where does this really go right? I mean, he had a little bit of use from the slot. He did run 6 routes from the slot a game. But I think it's only fair to say the T. Ferg breakout right now, it's predicated on a little bit of hope. But the coach speak is there also, right? So these shows are about encompassing the whole argument the best that I can from all angles. So for me, it's as simple as like Ferguson past 170 smash, Ferguson inside 160, no. In between 160 170, it's team dependent. I've also found that the two of them, Ferguson plus Parkinson, is my favorite pairing with an elite guy. If I have Bowers, I want Ferguson 170, Parkinson 205. Call it a day. Call it a day. Give me my smash tight end weekly, who, when my guys pop, will move into the flex, create relief for the whole squad. And the more I think about this, the more I think Parkinson is overdone. Where I'm going to disagree with Davis was this one we could do a little bit faster because, again, it's really just contextual, where he was kind of rough on Michael Mayer. And I think for redraft, I think that's fine. For best ball, I think that's a mistake. I think the Raiders are completely rebuilt. Okay, now let's go to the alignment for the Raiders. Last year, again, they were right at the same level as the Rams. In fact, they were a little bit higher as far as rate of 2 tight end sets go. So right off the bat, I think we should be thinking about standalone viability from a very good player who has shown us spike weeks as the TE1. Okay, then we get the move to Kubiak, who with Seattle last year was even higher than the both of them. So we went from a 2 tight end mindset to an even heavier 2 tight end mindset in a spot where there's no pass catching talent. The wide receivers for the Raiders have got to be among the worst in the league. I don't even think you'd take my word for it, right? ADP would say just that. Tucker and Naylor, maybe Malik Benson wins that third job. Is Jack Bench even a thing? Is he a NFL player in a year? I don't know. So again, stylistically and from a macro standpoint, I think the system is in place with opportunity for a player that can succeed. Standalone, again, with contingency value behind a second round tight end talent, first round depending on the league, where Mayer would, as a the type TE1, and listen, nobody's Brock Bowers, but we've seen him excel in the role before. So let me bring up Michael Mayer stuff next to Bowers here. And again, he's going to pale in comparison to it, but more than a third of a fantasy point per route. He's been effective. Even in like an afterthought season, right? He earned 50 targets, 23% target per route. These are strong numbers. Just 12 routes per first down. Love all of that. He's good versus man. Earns lots of targets versus the zone. Yards per route is good. I'd like to see a little bit better of a success rate, but still. The quarterback play was atrocious. We're hoping that takes a step forward. And if the rising tide does lift all the ships, that would be one of them. Like would, could, and should be one of them. So I'm just not seeing the kind of hand waving for Michael Mayer. Now, maybe part of that is because, again, I've been drafting a ton of Loveland. And when you're building best ball teams and you invest so heavily in a tight end, you have to back off. Now, I have no problem if Kincaid gets to pick 115 or later. I paired Bowers with Kincaid and shut the door, and I get what I get, and I don't get upset. You get what the fuck you get. You get a couple spike weeks from Mayer. You hope, Bowers or Loveland kind of carry the day. Now, Loveland, I think, goes late enough to get a third guy. I've also been drafting Mendoza as my third quarterback. I like to double tap in the heart of it in best ball. Right? I like to give me Lawrence and Herbert. Give me, sometimes I wait, I'll get Purdy and Dart and Mendoza, where I feel like I waited and I put together a good room. And if I have Mendoza, I think there's a good backstack there. Getting Mendoza, Tucker to Mayer, I think could be one of the answers late in the season. Again, nobody really knows. But again, Mayer has been good, and I don't think we should be hand-waving him, especially next to the total dust bowl shitbags that are going next to him. Guys are going to do absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? Just total nothing assets as far as fantasy goes. That was missed week 6 last year. Mayer goes 550-1. I love that. Kind of disappeared against KC, but they wiped their nuts all over the Raiders. That game was, fucking 31-zip or whatever. Bowers misses a game against the Giants. Mayer goes 9 for 89-0. How many tight ends have that even in the realm of outcomes? So my answer is not little. So again, shout out Davis. He's doing really, really, really great work. Check him out kind of everywhere. I really like his solo stuff. I think he's very good. Similar to myself, I think he's very good at talking these things through without kind of weighing his own priors. He's also I think he's maybe too humble. I think whatever, people dragging him for advance rate shit and success rates and best ball is fucking stupid. Okay. It really is stupid. Get off this fucking guy's back. He's a very good analyst. I think he's a good player. Sometimes, listen, guys shoot from the hip trying to win shit. I get it. I'm not going to judge him. I think he's super sharp. I also think it's completely unfair to bag somebody who is out there being completely transparent, giving away any fucking edge he ever might have. Right? Imagine if T. Ferguson is the answer. Right? Just imagine. Matt did himself a true disservice by pumping the shit out of this guy. Nobody would have been interested in him. Zero. He'd been going after 200 the entire time. He could have had 100% rostership, okay, and not cost himself 45 picks of ADP. So get off these damn guys' back. That's bullshit. You didn't win BBM. Well, 1 out of a million fucking people wins, okay? So I don't know Davis, but I can sympathize with some of the slinging. I get the same kind of slings and arrows for baseball, but you picked this team. Dude, what the fuck? You know what I mean? You're a grown-up. No one makes you smash the button. So shout out Maddock. I'm with him on T-Ferg up to a point. I am big on Parkinson, and I'm drafting Michael Mayer. I think ignoring him, I think you ignore him at your own let's move on to the next puzzle. Another guy who I can't get a hold of, but I wish I could. I really like Chess Liam. Follow him. He's at Liam Murphy, Liam on the screen. Murphy. Super smart guy. Like, Liam's like, he's one of those guys I'd imagine when he was growing up, people told him he was too smart for his own good. You know, he's fucking brilliant. He really is. He's brilliant. Very good risk management. He also takes more shit than he should for his stands and stuff. His kind of focal point is going to get into his point before we go. I had one more that we're not going to get to. I'm going to get out of here after this one. Thank you for checking out the show. Press like and subscribe. Hopefully, I fixed the quality. Trust me when I tell you, I pay for high-end shit across the board, from tech to 5G stuff. I'm arguing with StreamYard right now. For whatever reason, halfway through my streams, everything is going fucking blurry. I think it's a bug with this circle that you're seeing. When it zooms, I was counting. Like the third time I flip back and forth, everything goes to shit. Whatever it is, what it is. So Liam takes a lot of shit for taking stands. People say he's too aggressive with his rostership portfolio. And I'm in full on agreement with my dude here that if you're playing for this, like, I balance my portfolio. Why? Why? If you're doing it for the sake of balancing and you're trying to like appease the fucking best ball gods or appease the social media fucking hounds and their advance rate obsession, you're doing it wrong. Now, his viral tweet about wanting fewer teams in the finals, that one I'm not so sure I'm going to get there. But listen, man, when guys this smart talk, I'm fucking listening. Bet your ass, because at the end of the day, it really is about what he's saying and the true point. Because I think a lot of what he says gets misframed. The true point is, you make your stand because you're trying to win the tournament. How do you win the tournament? By taking stands. I was listening to him. I never miss anything he does. He said, play for keeps. And when you play for keeps, there are going to be bases I don't cover, right? So that ties into the Tetairoa McMillan thing that I was mentioning at the outset. I understand he's good at football, and I know he could beat me, but I'm not going to just start clicking the button for situations I don't like over situations I do like. When, mind you, especially in something like best ball, you can't really draft the same team over and over again. You could have the same guys going, even like rounds 1 through 4, rounds through 5. Who's to say that's going to be what wins the tournament? That's just not how these things work. It's how you built the entire puzzle. So I heard a really good saying. It was a fantasy baseball analyst who said, I don't do that because I don't order watered down drinks. And I'm like, dude, I'm like with you, brother. I'm with that 100%. Right? We don't order watered down drinks. You play to win the game. You know what I mean? So why am I going to pass on my, late third, early fourth Waddle? What? Because I have a bunch of Waddle? Yeah, I want Waddle. But I want him paired with everybody. I want him with T-Ferg teams. I want him on Parkinson teams. I want him on neither. I want him with Loveland. I want him with both. So you're not going to run these guys up into the 70% things. I'm okay going up in the 20 and 30s, and I know that that's kind of looked down upon. I don't care. I'm with him. When he says his ownership rates on the stuff, I'm with it 100%. I'm with him. You got to take the guys you like. There are going to be places that you miss on, that you willfully ignore, and I'm doing just that. And I kind of missed on. I wish I could have brought like a specific that he had, but I'll give you one that I have. Okay. I'm drafting no Titans. I don't want any Titans. Now, whatever. I guess I have some Pollard in some auto drafts. And maybe now I'd rather have Spears. Like maybe Spears is draftable if we think Pollard might be dust and there's more of a split than we think, and they are as bad as I'm assuming. Maybe Spears has a couple of like spike garbage time weeks. I don't want any Titans. They didn't address the line. Look at this. Titans under 17 points a game, one of the worst average point differentials, under 260 yards a game, 4.4 yards per play, 39% success rate as a team. These are all dead last. The Titans fucking stunk. What changed? We've seen in the past, you can't add skill players to rotten environments and just expect things to reverse. That's not how this thing works. If you're not going to protect the quarterback, who we don't know is good in the first place, you're going to get more of this. Just bottom three, everything. EPA per play, every play they ran on offense cost them 0.16 of a point. Just terrible. 5.5 plays per drive. Their drives only went for 23 yards per drive. Just terrible. 1.4 first downs per drive, 1.4 points per drive, below 30% driving scoring success rate. Just everything you mentioned is terrible. The line was not able to block for the runners, but it didn't matter anyway because there was no chance of threat vertically. So it didn't matter. The pass stuff, as bad as it goes, just horrendous. I mean, this is just across the board. There isn't a split. There isn't a spot you like. They take entirely too many sacks. They took 52 sacks for 7.5 yards lost per sack. Every single sack basically kills a drive. I don't want anything to do with the Titans, especially if we're talking about paying premiums for any of these guys. Again, look at the Cam Ward stuff. It was disgusting. Even all the volume, he couldn't do shit with it. Just, he was terrible. Wildly inaccurate, 14% off-target rate, completed less than 60% of his passes for fewer than 6 YPA. I mean, this is really, really bad. 28%, 28% first down per attempt. Just awful. Fewer than a third of his throws went for a first down. That's not how you do this, homie. That dog don't hunt, man. Can't have a percentage to the sticks below 40. That dog don't hunt, man. Again, just a slot merchant. I don't know. And again, they bring in Wandale. Maybe there's some love there. I don't know. I'm not buying. I'm just not buying it because I think they're going to try and force it to Tate. I think that's going to be a bust pick at price. I think across the board, I'm just off the Titans systemically. Again, I'm playing for it all. I don't want middling Titans crap. I want good offenses that move the rock, where multiple people can succeed, where I have faith in the quarterback, where they're going to be favored. Like, I'm just not interested in this. I don't want it at all. I had Ward pop up on a couple of these like $1 mini Dalmatian, whatever fucking auto drafts. The first thing I did was drop Ward in my ranks where I don't get him. I just don't want anything to do with any of it. You know, again, he didn't run at all. So, like, that kills. And now we're not even talking fantasy about Ward per se. You need your quarterback to run for first downs. Like, that is part of – so that becomes part of EPA per dropback and not per attempt, in case anyone was wondering why the two of them matter. Right, per dropback, you could still scramble. Scrambling has a high EPA because it's really effective. He doesn't even run. Ward does not have – the game is not slowed down enough for him to process enough to know when to do this shit. Do we think it's going to happen? Again, more coaching changes. I just don't see it. And without the line, I don't know how this happens. Now, he was pretty good with the deep ball, you know, and they were terrible with the play action stuff. Again, he took entirely too many sacks. He took 55 sacks, almost 10% sack rate, over 9%, let's say. 7.5 yards lost, I mentioned, and just terrible versus the blitz, right? So that's another one, too. These are all people accuse me of being too nose in a spreadsheet sometimes. I watch this shit also. But I think a lot of times the stats can guide you to where the holes in the game are. Look at that. The blitz EPA. Oh, my God. All you got to do is blitz. Just blitz him every single down. Blitz him every down. He's going to take tons of sacks and just sink the entire offense. I just am off the Titans altogether. I had something else from Liam we'll do on another time. But I think that'll do it for today's show. Shout out, you know, all the people that we covered. So that was Patty Corrine, who mentioned likely worst pick. Johnny Daigle on the Tetairoa fade. Davis Maddock boosting Terrence Ferguson and not so high on my guy Michael Mayer. And then Chess Liam having us be confident in our takes and our work. So that'll do it for the first Counterpoint episode, Fantasy Football Counterpoint, with your boy, John Legeza. If you into the stats and stuff, we're also in season. I do in-season projections, optimal 150s for DK. This happens for every single slate. I also have my own algorithm. We're going to be doing reception ladders. I like to bet on team totals. Also, all team totals for underdogs. In particular, another story for another day as we approach the season. I simulated the entire season. I have my standings up compared to Vegas lines. I have modeled in the entire week one. again, compared to lines, money line, and sides. So if you're into the betting stuff, I think for $2 a week, plus you get all the baseball stuff, very hard to get this. I'm trying to help regular fucking poor schmucks get a leg up in the information war. If you fancy yourself even half serious at this stuff, how are you getting all this information set, formatted, split, presented for less than $2 a week? I think that's fucking silly, right? Value your own time. Don't be a cheap bitch your whole life, man. Trust me, you should be cheap. Don't be too cheap. Value the one commodity that works, and that's your fucking time on this earth. So, all right, that'll do it. Appreciate you all. Means the world to me. Follow me up on Twitter if you have any questions. Check out the description, pinned post on Substack has like samples, so you can see everything again. I don't want to blindside anybody, but I tried to show you through the video as I'm making my arguments how everything is set in a way that you can keep your stream of consciousness while you're doing your research. So from Big Johnny Stud and all of us here at Core Stats, remember, football's version of 300. Give the book nothing, take from that bitch everything. It ain't madness, baby.
This is Sparta!
That's right. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the day. When we're done with the book, enjoy the pay. And remember, when you work this freaking hard, the winning feels a lot less like luck. Yo, peace.